So we're going to take a look at first the companies we've got on the stage today. Julia, maybe a very brief introduction to A1 Telekom Austria.
Sure. I think Austria is a bit misleading here in the name because it's a holding, so short name is A1 Holding Telekom Austria Group. We operate in 7 countries in Europe. Meanwhile, since we are still in 7 countries, we are not on the biggest 20 broadband operators yet. What we've seen in the first day on the slides, we're close to 3 million broadband customers in all the 7 markets, and the reason the markets are small. So we are AAA operators most of our countries. Only Serbia is on the mobile, the rest is basically fixed mobile and TV.
Okay, so A1 Austria comes from Austria, but now has evolved into lots of other countries across Eastern Europe, CEE, and the Baltic states, I believe even. So, is this?
Belarus is a bit below Baltics, but yeah.
Yeah, so quite an international approach here. So you're from SET in Hungary. Maybe a quick word on your company.
Sure. SET in Hungary is a neutral, integrated telecommunications infrastructure service provider, actually a mobile infrastructure service provider. SETIN has 4,000 points of presence in Hungary. We have about 200 employees. We are part of a group, we are part of the SETIN group, which is present in the Czech Republic, in Serbia, in Bulgaria. Our primary owner is EPF Group, an investment company. Also a minority shareholder, GIC is the owner of this group. And in Hungary we have an additional minority owner, which is the state, the Hungarian state as a minority owner.
Okay, so Thierry, about VOO in Belgium, maybe a bit what's kind of your special role in Belgium and what differentiates you from Proximus, who we've just had on the stage?
Yes, and I was working for Proximus in the past, so...
Okay, there's a connection.
VOO is a small operator, a general operator. We address 1.8 million home passed. We are a convergent operator. We do have our own network, which is a DOCSIS network, and we are MVNO for the mobile. What else? That since the 1st of June, we are part of the Orange Group, so we will have a near bright future, I think.
You've grown.
Yeah. The group exists, the brand exists since the 2008 or 1, I don't remember exactly. But we are the historic operator on the cable region.
Okay, so let's get straight to the point. Broadband strategies in Europe is the topic of our panel. So Julia, what are A1 Group's broadband strategies? What differentiates you perhaps more?
Yeah, and I think this is how you made the introduction. It's the last session of today, right? So we also might sum up certain things we heard over the 2 days. When it comes to the broadband, and we basically tackled a lot within these 2 days about the network developments, what are the differences, to go too far, either like multi-gigs opportunities for the future. Then we tackled the CPs, obviously whatever comes next, closer to the consumer in the households, what is the strategy going on there. Then there's a lot of discussions on the Wi-Fi and how to measure and deliver the best Wi-Fi experience. But I think there are 2 more stages yet that exist until we reach what we say is a consumer experience. Is which devices customers are using on their own and which applications they use. And despite of the fact that there's still a lot to do on these first 3 layers, and I have to say we're not the most advanced definitely in the development of the Wi-Fi experience or providing the latest generation of the CPs. But I think we should already start to dig into the understanding what actually the customer is experiencing as the end application. And what we see from our side, and also what actually it means for companies like Microsoft, who actually develops Teams, which KPIs they consider most relevant for the consumer and what we can see from our side. So the partnerships and joint discovery, obviously with everything which is GDPR related, data privacy things important in place, it might be the next step we all need to think about. And on the devices, I think it's a bit less relevant for fixed business, so it's more relevant for the FMS, but anyway, we all use at home everything from the smartphone to the big screen TV. So how these devices actually help us to deliver whatever we build in the network, and then whatever we deliver for the best CPEs towards the experiences we have. And when it comes to the future, but I think we also talk about the future in the
No, you can.
Yeah. So, and then that's what we are facing today, right? So understand what customers are confusing and how to deliver this experience. But the future, and yesterday I really like this statement here on stage by saying we are waiting for this killer app, which will basically identify now where we'll deliver whatever the network to for this killer app. But I think it's a bit of the chicken and problem. The app will not be developed until also the networks and we are ready for that. And here I would again refer to what I just said in my previous few sentences. It's about the partnerships and pilots with those big ones who are developing this future generation of the apps. And with them we can discover first, okay, what would it mean for us as a telcos to support the customers with this future, whatever VR, AR, whatever comes, or what they experience, and how using the same VR environment together and see not only hands but also legs together.
Let's stay with the operators. So I'm continuing with you, Thierry. What's the boost strategy in the broadband market in Belgium? Can you say maybe what differentiates you from other players?
Yes, the first differentiation we have is that we are operating a DOCSIS network. That's because the main operator, which is Proximus 65 network, it's VDSL.
Which DOCSIS standard I got with 3.1?
It's a 3.0 and 3.1.
3.0, 3.1.
Okay. So it has for us an advantage in terms of speed for the customer. So we are offering the fastest speed on the market. In the near future, we will develop the FTTH because Orange Group, Orange Budget confirmed that we will invest in FTTH and cover 2/3 of the.
What's the maximum speed at the moment?
On the DOCSIS is 1 gig.
1 gig. Okay.
1 gig, yeah. And for the upload is 50 meg.
Yeah.
We can go higher, but we just cap at 50 meg for the moment. But the problem there is the consumer is not aware of what speed he needs for his needs, and most of the consumer also don't need necessarily 1 gigabit of speed. The main problem that the consumer have today is more linked to the usage they have with the Wi-Fi, as already said before, and the upload speed, because we see that with 20 megabit, which is the lowest speed that we offer for the moment, is a little bit, it becomes difficult for the user if you want to make Teams and other applications at the same time. So for the moment, we try to increase this upload speed and also to cover the whole footprint with the 1 gigabit offer, so we can maximize also the consumer on this, the customer on this theory.
Okay, thank you. So let's come to you. You're kind of in between the players offering solutions to the operators. I was wondering what the role of data is in that environment. Is that an important issue, and can you maybe elaborate on the importance of data in this environment?
Sure. As you've mentioned, we are a wholesale service provider, infrastructure service provider. So we are happy when our customer is happy, and our customer is happy when their customers are happy. And digitalization is the basis of the business life. Digitalization is the basis private consumers. The basis for digitalization is the infrastructure underneath. And we are providing this infrastructure. And this infrastructure has to enable growing and growing data usage. We are experiencing 30 to 40% growth annually on data, which means that there might not be one killer app, which is extremely, from 1 second to another, requires extreme additional data, but the data volume is continuously increasing, and we are expecting this trend to continue also in the next decade. So it's not a short-term development. And the consumers, the end users, require seamless infrastructures, which are capable to serve this, which requires, on the other hand, of course, continuous investment into these infrastructures.
What's the role of data at A1 Group, Julia?
I think it's in general kind of the answer is here. The data is important. When it comes to collection data from the cities, right, and this is what we also discussed a lot here today and yesterday, that's what provided a bit of the view what is going on in the household and what is the consumer's experience, which actually helped us to evaluate the following. So we deliver a certain speed to the home, and then we assume this is exactly the speed the customer is actually getting, and that the experience is, perfect, but it's not the case. And in order to also be capable to compare, but also to understand better within the one another operators what is going on inside, we also introduced the Giga. We basically compare which percentage of our customers get, because there's a Wi-Fi and then there's the devices, from 75 to 100% of the speed he or she bought. Which percentage gets from 50 to 70, which is below. And that's exactly where we see the first red signal, what the next actions and which customers need to be affected. And then basically you have the data, you can suggest certain things like move the equipment or use it for the upselling opportunities, mesh devices, whatever comes and you have in your portfolio. But I have to say we are not on the same level in all of our countries, and I think it's also a bit of the benefit of the group. So you have the countries which might start first, show you the use cases and what is the outcome of the development they've done, and then you can continue and roll out with the others.
So each market is a bit different, but then of course you have the benefit of having the experience from other markets that might not, or might be a bit further developed, and see what's happening that might be happening in other markets.
Sure, but you also can split the POCs, right? So you have one market which does the one experiment and another, and then you just compare and then you see what could be selected for the group.
See what's working or what's not working. What about Belgium, Thierry? What's the role of data at VOO?
The main usage of the data is to predict the needs and capacity for the network. That's the main usage we are doing now. And start to troubleshooting outage that we had. For example, 2 years ago when we had the robotic footings in Belgium, we were able to see street by street the progression of the footings by seeing the modem going offline. We also closely monitor the data to try to determine the behavior of the customer and to understand what they need. That's something we are missing some key element to clearly understand which application you use at what time for which purpose, because the expectation for the usage of an application differ. For example, if you want to play a game, you need a good latency. If you want to watch a football game, you want to have a good latency as well. While for some other applications, you don't need this kind of performance. And that's something that we have the raw data, we see that they consume, how much they consume, we don't know why it's consuming how much at that time. That's something we are missing. All the other data are collected via direct survey to the customer. So we make frequently panels with the customer survey to
Maybe I would add two additional aspects beyond the, let's say, the strategic level. One is data is a huge amount of data is generated within, for example, within our own network, and we can utilize this data to support better operations service and to support more sustainable, energy efficient operations. So data can be used, for example, to reduce, to shut down certain elements of the network when there is no requirement, when there is no user on that network, and make it again available when there is someone logging on to that network segment. But also data, and here AI is supporting the systems to do the appropriate efficiency measures without increasing the experience on the consumer side. On the other hand, we also experience, maybe slower than in other continents, but also in our region, we experience that the data which is generated by the customers, by B2B customers, is needed back locally at a very high, with a low latency, requiring local data centers capable to support this request of receiving back very quickly data.
Okay. Yes,
Can I just add a bit from a different angle? And it's less about gathering data, but it's about more how we look at the data and how we look at the social patterns inside of the household. Historically, we looked on their customer as like, in the line, if it's a fixed business, or it's a consumer, it's in the mobile business. But the more and more, especially in the COVID, it shows, right? You move inside of the household. There are a lot of people actually, interact there with the different applications. But we never came yet in the understanding of the business side when it comes to the revenue generation, when it comes to which products actually you sell. You sell it not to the the line. You not sell it to the one which is signed the contract, but you sell it to the household. And this household view is not yet reported or established in whatever controlling reporting when it comes to this KPIs. And it's not yet established in the way how we look on the development of the product, how we look on the marginality of the products, because now it's quite often one by one, right? So how much money this particular product brings you, how many sales you can make. But look at from the perspective, what is the revenue generated from the whole household, which consists of the very different individuals with a very different behavior. And this might be changed the way how we innovate, what actually we consider is possible still to bring in the market and try and test, even if it doesn't show you a huge potential results up front, but changing also with the angle how we look on the consumer.
Let's look into the future, and we're talking about next generation telecommunications infrastructures, or so-called next gen networks. What are the challenges in that, and perhaps what do you see in this phrase, the next gen network? Let's start with you, Thierry, perhaps, over at Google.
If we stay with the data in mind, the problem is we collect more and more data, but we don't have the capacity to analyze them. And also, as we reach a certain level of quality, to improve this quality, it become very hard work, and then we need extra capacity for analysis. Maybe EY will help there, but that's the main issue today, is to cross the data with all the data we have to determine how we can improve the customer experience, how we can improve the productivity of outage, of the needs of capacity. So for me, the future will not link to the technology itself of the network, because the FTTH will be the future for most of them, for most of us here. But will be more how can we analyze all the data we collect and we can take action after that.
Okay, so if a customer approaches you and says, look, I want to have the best next-gen network that can be created, how can you assist them, or maybe ask the right questions, or even mention a couple of challenges that are involved?
First of all, I think it's very important that the end users don't care about the technology.
Yeah.
We heard yesterday in one of the panels that FWA, fixed wireless access, is more preferred by many customers because there is no drilling needed to get fiber into the house. There is no long deployment time needed. So customers only care about getting the right service. It should be available, so the capacity should be there. It should be fast enough. And if we're talking about B2B customers, and it should be capable to serve special SLAs, individual service level requirements. That's what the end users need. But how can we make that happen? Well, it's a continuous development. It's a continuous evolvement. Currently, we are modernizing our network, so now we are deploying 5G. But already thinking is about, started about the next gen further developments. It's on the agenda. It's not yet happening, but it's on the agenda. What does this mean in very practical terms? It simply means that continuous investment is needed into the infrastructure, into the services, to make it comply with the demand, with the consumer expectations. And in order to be able to serve this continuous development requirement, the industry started to give a response. And the costs need to be reduced, efficiency has to be increased. And part of this development procedure is the involvement of infrastructure companies. There are different models. We are an infrastructure company providing passive and active infrastructures as a service. We are providing additionally transmission services, security services, IT infrastructure. So we are providing much. Some companies provide towers, but both directions or similar directions point to similar way forward, improving efficiency by reducing costs in the long term. By serving more operators with one infrastructure, you can reduce the development costs which are necessary to serve the customers appropriately.
You were mentioning fixed mobile convergence. Is it already a reality on your networks?
We are. I can provide different answers to the same question. I can say yes, because mobile infrastructure is strongly relying on fixed infrastructure underneath. On the other hand, I have to say no. We at Set in Hungary, we are a mobile infrastructure service provider. We don't provide fixed end user services. We don't have an access network. What I believe is, what I mentioned a little bit earlier, that the consumers do not care about the technology beyond the services. They simply care about getting the service what they need.
Yes, they want to have a smooth service accessing the content propositions that they're interested in. And we had that in panels earlier on as well. So the best technology is invisible. We always have to mention that. Julia, what about A1's proposition of next gen network? What would that be in A1 groups for you? And perhaps also what role would fixed mobile convergence play?
Yeah, maybe just a few things to add for the support what you just what we just mentioned about their data, about the efficiency and the cost reduction. What I also see the necessity actually today is make sure what we heard from the Deutsche Telekom, make sure that you harmonize the software, harmonize the devices you have on the consumer side. So no matter how good your network is, if you're not capable to deliver to the end customer, it's basically useless expenses in the past. And it might be, I'm not sure if we are the only one, but we see a lot of the things which need to be improved on this matter. When it comes to the FMS, we have one of our markets which is mobile only, in Serbia. And that's the operator, A1 Serbia, who grew the most 7% revenue growth year-over-year, which basically has today a couple of 100,000 of FMS customers, still no 5G, so it's 4G only, and it's actually showing that even if you are the only one without the fixed infrastructure, and before this year even without TV, if you made a good understanding of the customer, provide good equipment in a proposition, you can be successful with that as well. So from this year we added the TV solution, and we also wait for auction about the 5G as well. We also offer 5G, fixed mobile substitution in other countries. We also see the challenges, which was explained there yesterday, especially that you need to be strict with your sales employees so that they don't prioritize, or they don't sell what is easier to sell and get the incentives right away, but rather what will be the most efficient for the customer in this particular household. That's also the issue we see, and we face this challenge.
Let's now address another challenge and an issue that's been appearing on most of the panels in the past 2 days, and that's the sustainability, the energy consumption, the environmental impact of your operations. Thierry, what's Wood doing about this? What's your maybe a bit of a role model here as well?
Yeah, currently not enough, because it was not our main concern as a small actor on the market. But since we are part of Orange Group now, we will fulfill the engagement of the group, and the group has for our objective to be carbon neutral by 2043. So yeah, we will follow this path. Already today, as we are renewing our network, and by passing to the SIS 3.1, we already consume less than before. I think it's something like 20% for the network that is dated. Plus, there is all the other indirect gain that directly linked to the network, for example, the fleet of cars. We try to go for electric cars. I think the companies will be aligned with Orange Group as well, so all company cars will be electric. They reduce the temperature into the buildings, things like that. But the main consumption, the main energy is from the network. The main footprint carbon is from the supply chains. That's something that we like to do.
Something to work on all ends and on the whole chain involved, as I thought. Is that something you're also looking at, reducing carbon footprint and these things?
Let me approach the question first holistically.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to spell out, it's obvious, but it's important to spell out that the industry itself is supporting sustainability. With digitalization, with reducing, with enabling so many things, we have reduced the environmental load as an industry. If I add an additional layer to that the infrastructure service provisioning model, which is aimed to support more mobile operators or more operators on one network, then that's the next step, which helps to reduce the environmental load as well. Not only the costs, which I've been talking about earlier, but also the environmental load in many different ways, in needing less locations, which is helpful from the visual perspective, but also from the environmental load perspective as well. But also to some extent in the direct energy costs as well. But that's not enough. Of course, although we ourselves are taking measures to reduce our own footprint, partially it means what I've already mentioned, looking at the AI-driven abilities of the network to utilize only the necessity capacities and the layers which are required at a certain time. In addition to that, we are deploying our own load, wherever it's feasible, and on top of that, to shift towards green energy.
Okay, so lots of ways how to solve these problems and lots of small steps that at the end lead to a comprehensive solution. Julia, would you like to comment on that as well?
A bit, just obviously the industries has this in the strategy, so A1 also has a sustainability in the strategy as the whole company. I just wanted to comment, I think it was a question before from Seagate about what do you do with the legacy devices, right? Once you solve it, how it contributes to the sustainability and others. We didn't find the solution in all of the operators, but in one of the operators we actually figure out that there are quite a number of demands worldwide for these old devices. Either they use it for the spare parts or for the markets where it's still possible demand. So we just sell it out. So we made a tender, we give the highest price for whatever we don't need any longer as a CPs, and we sell it out.
Okay, yes, maybe one.
Can I just one more point, because maybe it's too sunshiny, the picture what we have shown, but it also has a, let's say, a different angle, which makes it a real challenge to deal with this topic. Modernizing the network, for example, a mobile network, which we are dealing with, reduces the energy requirement. On the other hand, the capacity, the demand for capacity is continuously increasing, as I have mentioned. This starts to pull up, even on a modernized network, the energy requirements.
So this eats up some of the benefits.
It starts to eat up the benefit, and then when we move towards 5G, that again puts on an additional layer, an additional energy requirement. So when I was previously saying that the remaining, which we ourselves cannot solve, needs to be handled by purchasing green energy, this is the reason why there is a remaining, because growing capacity equals with growing energy requirement, even if we shift to a more modern network architecture.
I think that was an important addition to also look at the general market developments and how they impact those strategies. Towards the end of this panel, I'd like to use the opportunity to ask the audience for questions. Yes, there's the microphone coming up.
Hi, Jeff from Turkey. Julia mentioned looking at the interface between the applications and application providers and the network. And when you look at that solution space, of course, network neutrality limits what you can do. But it seems to me in that solution space there are two main areas. One is edge computing, and one is QoS, which Sol also mentioned. I think QoS, in the 10GS1 era, I think QoS, especially for B2C, is increasingly a non-issue because you can just throw bandwidth at it. But is edge computing, is it going to change broadband? Is it going to have an impact? Is it something that's on your radar at all? And is that part of the strategy going forward?
I can just say that in our case, I think the edge computing is more considered for the evaluation as the first cases, right? The B2C is more in the evaluation period of time. But I would not agree fully about the QoS. So the bandwidth might be not, the option, but honestly, I would not say that that's, okay, you might have big bandwidth, but if you don't have a CDN close to the customer or whatever additional requirements might come, maybe that is the area we need to improve. That's why I'm saying what we can predict is the best to deliver the end consumer application to the customer, but might not be fully, aware because we're not in this application. We need to have these companies in the partnership. We definitely can be the best in delivering what we develop ourselves. I don't know, our digital TV, we can see and know everything about the KPIs and the quality, but not for the third parties. And it might, require some investments on top, in particular this, quality delivery. Keeping the net neutrality for the